back in trouble today.
Hang on.
Really?
Like a native laws, the little kiosks in the middle, they try and give you stuff. You know what I'm talking about? Usually they only do it.
Greeting, everyone.
After me.
Welcome to the Monday, November 4th, 2019 meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Highway Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners. First order of business is please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's take a brief moment to thank the town administrator, the fire, and EMS, and police chief. A lot of conversation went back and forth on Halloween. We were a little worried with the weather. For the most part, I believe it went off pretty well. Weather held off a little bit, wasn't quite as bad as they said it was going to be, but just want to thank everyone for keeping the children's safety first in their minds. First up, acceptance of minutes, October 28, 2019. Mr. Marcy.
Mr. Chairman, I move we accept the minutes of October 28, 2019 as written.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any questions or concerns?
Move that I was absent at the that pre-meeting before the town meeting.
I was absent also, and I did review the minutes.
You did.
I had a chance to speak to the administrator. Call to a vote. All in favor state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Next up, appointments, resignations. I believe we have none. Next up, public citizen comments. Public comments, citizens' comments, informational only. Anybody wishing to be heard on an issue not on the agenda does not require a vote. Hearing none. Town administrators report.
Board members, good evening. Last Friday, I met with the managing partner from Camden Partners. This meeting was the culmination of several phone conversations that began earlier this year in July. Camden Partners proposes to redevelop the Stevens Historic Mill into approximately 164 one- and two-bedroom market-rate apartments and supporting amenities. One amenity that will be offered is a meeting and banquet venue that will be available for resident and local community rentals for meetings, weddings, and other events. There was also a discussion of a pub. Camden proposes to use state federal historic tax credits coupled with conventional debt to finance the project and is committing no less than $25 million to complete the redevelopment. They are requesting that the town of Dudley provide water and sewer service to the project, as well as any street improvements necessary. They are also requesting real estate tax relief, either through a TIF or a pilot, for the development to facilitate the project underwriting and to attract project investors. I've formed a project task force to assist with the development of the negotiation of a TIF or pilot proposal and to streamline the permitting, inspection, and infrastructure considerations. And I apologize because I'm losing my voice already. The core membership of the task force will consist of the FAA Chair Mike Mayotte, Selectman Jay Johnson, the Fire Chief, a Citizen-at-Large EDC member Mark Marziotti, our Building Inspector, and myself. And depending on the status of our planner, I'm going to add the planner to that group as well, or maybe a member of the Planning Board. Our first meeting as a group with Camden will be, as of today, November 20th at 3:30. At some point after that meeting, and based on the recommendation of the task force, I will be asking the Board of Selectmen for a vote that expresses the interest of the town to negotiate a TIF or pilot with Camden Partners, or both. When a proposal is ready, it will be brought forward for the board's review and eventual vote to approve. This is the same process that we followed when negotiating the TIF with the Webco Chemical Company. Good with that one, Mr. Chairman?
Good.
Community Compact Grant. I mentioned last month that because of the circumstances of our previous grant, I received an email from DLS stating that we would not be eligible to apply for another grant under the Community Compact program this year. This was particularly disappointing as I was hoping to secure funding for our salary study. I went ahead and applied for the grant funding despite our bad news, and thankfully the DOR reconsidered the circumstances, and we have been awarded sufficient financing to move forward with our salary study at no cost to the taxpayer or draw upon our own town budget.
Great.
And then finally, Mr. Chairman, WGL solar credits. I'd like to recognize the efforts of two people that I delegated some important work to over the past several weeks. First, and in no particular order, Deb Thibodeau. I delegated the negotiation of some of our solar credits to the regional school district. The negotiation was successful, and she has recovered approximately $88,000 in credits, which means that we'll be receiving a check at some point for deposit into the general fund for $88,000, probably within the next week. And Michelle Jervis, after a very thorough search, Michelle and I were unable to locate a copy or the original contract that was signed by the town in 2014 to purchase the net metering credits for the solar array in Orange, Mass. And to complicate things, the contract had been sold multiple times and is poised to be sold yet again this week. So without the contract, we had nothing to transmit to town council, who I have asked to help us stop the bleeding with regard to the town's obligation to purchase unnecessary and unusable solar net metering credits. After several weeks and multiple phone calls, Michelle was able to track down a copy of the contract, which I have since transmitted to town council, and her efforts will go a long way in hopefully negotiating a permanent solution to the problem. And I will keep the board apprised, as always, on the progress of our negotiations. And that's it for this week, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions for the town administrator? Mr. Massey?
No, just, Mr. Chairman, thank you, Jonathan and Michelle and Deb, for, finding $88,000 coming back to the general fund. That's pretty awesome. And, and moving us forward with, keeping track of our very important documents going forward. So, great report, guys. Thank you.
I'd like to echo that too. Nice job by Deb and Michelle. We always talk about job sharing and move people around. Well, we have pretty talented people that already do a lot of moving around and a lot of unofficial job sharing as it is. So kudos to both. I appreciate it. Good, Mr. Johnson? Good, Kerry?
Just one thing. The first piece about Camden Partners, that is outstanding news. I know we've been struggling with getting something done with the old Stevens Mill for a while, and it finally looks like something might happen. So that's great news.
Oh, can I add to that, Mr.
Yep.
Chairman? It also sounds like it looks more like something we'd want to put there versus some of the other proposals we've had in the past, so.
Jonathan, would it be premature to put the link on our Facebook page to some of these other properties, or should we just Camden and let just people look on their own?
No, well, it probably wouldn't. I'd like to, maybe we bring it to the 20th and have our first meeting with the group. And depending on,
There it goes.
well, I've been lucky so far, but nothing surprises me. So let's go through the meeting on the 20th, and I think it's probably a good idea to get it on before Thanksgiving.
All right, so not looking for a motion, we'll just accept the town administrative report as presented. License and permitting, we have none. Public hearing. First up, no parking on Warsaw Ave. The Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 4th, 2019, at 6:30. The Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. Room 321A. It's part of their agenda. Purpose of the hearing, to act on a request for no parking on both sides of Warsaw at the crest of the hill between Utility Pole 4-1, Utility Pole -5. If you wish to speak on this issue, please attend the meeting or submit your concerns in writing by emailing. If you are the owner and rent, please inform your tenants of the public hearing. Board of Selectmen, Stephen Sullivan, Chair. I so declare the public hearing open at 7:43.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to mention that the fire chief is excused for this
6:43.
evening for personal reasons.
Okay, so excused. How do you want to start this, Jonathan? You want to start off? You want the police chief?
No, I'll turn it right over to the police chief.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Chief Wayne.
Thank you. If you can see up on the screen, or off on the sides here, that's the area in question that we're talking about. Just so happens when the highway superintendent and I were out there looking at this location where I put it, that FedEx truck came and parked and was making a delivery in that local area. So at least it's a good visual for you to see the space we're looking for. This here is at the crest of the hill. If you're looking at the back of this FedEx truck, to the left is a 2 or 3 duplex houses or condos or something that's on the side of the road there. And so one of the problems is as people are parking in front of those buildings, especially where that little sign is on the left-hand side near the trash barrel, they're blocking basically that entire lane. So anybody that's coming in the same direction has to cross over into the other side of travel to go over. And this whole area is an obstructed view area. So that's the area in question that we're asking to post as no parking. There should be sufficient off-street parking for both the condo complex off to the right and the units off to the left. Each have their own individual driveways and space there where there should be sufficient parking.
Vinnie?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The road is kind of narrow in there. It's just right around 19 feet, so there isn't a lot of area for parking. And basically, echo exactly what the chief just said. It is a blind hill.
Chief, I know they have that main entrance on the complex on the right, but they have that secondary exit only that exits onto George Street.
Yes.
My initial thought would be, should we speak to their association and send all their traffic out that way? But my fear would be coming over the top of the hill on Ellis where it meets George Street would be just as bad, because that's where it pops out.
Yeah, they probably don't have a lot of traffic coming in and out of there, and I think one of the things, if there's no parking on the street, that'll help that anyway, because they should have at least a sufficient view as they're coming out of that driveway to look left or right. One of the problems, the biggest problem with this is that the fact that people have to go into the opposite lane on an obstructed hill. That's where the problem comes in, so.
How about any thought of making that one way going down?
It would probably be a little bit too inconvenient for the residents, because we looked similar thing we looked at for Alton Drive or some different locations too.
It's a cut through.
And you get a lot of feedback from people that they're not happy with it. I think as long as there's no parking, there is enough room for 2 vehicles to go through. But that's one of the things that causes the issue.
So no speed bumps, right?
No speed bumps. I'd yield to the highway superintendent for that anyways.
I think we got rid of those anyways. I don't think we have them anymore. Mr. Massey?
Have any of the residents responded to us on the things we sent out to them about this, or?
I haven't heard anything. I haven't got any questions or anything.
Okay.
And I know we've also tried to speak to the tenants over there and, tell them not to have people park there, and sometimes it works, sometimes it wouldn't work, but it just became a continuous issue. So I think this would at least solve the problem.
So what would they do if they have like a function, it's having like a birthday party? Where would we tell them to put the cars? Over the crest of the hill?
Yeah, I think the best bet for them would probably be near the bottom of the hill, so probably going down towards Fairview Ave. Or, if there's another location somewhere on one of the side streets, because there's a couple other side streets in that area. But I think it's just got to come with the territory.
So right now, the plan right now is just no parking on the crest. We're not gonna go all the way down to Fairview, back up to George.
No, I don't think that's the intention right now.
Mr. Johnson? Mr. Singanevich?
I'm good.
Massey?
No, it's part of my walk route. I know exactly what he's talking about.
I walked that for a lot of years, too.
Yes, you did.
Must be nice woods there, Warsaw Woods.
Yeah.
Mr. Administrator, anything you want to add?
I think it's a reasonable solution.
Anybody here from the public wishing to be heard? Any further comments from department heads?
You have signs and signposts in stock.
So, as soon as we take a vote,
Close public hearing.
close the public hearing at 6:48. What's the board's pleasure?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Massey?
I move that we approve the request from Chief Wayner and Highway Superintendent Paletta to place no parking signs on Warsaw Avenue as laid out in the notice.
Motion made.
Second.
Second, Mr. Singanevich. Any further questions or concerns from anybody? Hearing none. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
You guys.
Next up, we have a second public hearing. Board of Selectmen will hold a public hearing on Monday, November 4th, 2019, at 6:40 PM at the Dudley Municipal Complex, 71 West Main Street, Dudley, Mass. 01571, in the Veterans Memorial Hall, room 321. Purpose of this hearing, to act on the request for a Class 2 secondhand vehicle license for Zoom Auto Services located at 93 Schofield Ave, Dudley, Mass. Alexander Ozaleski, owner. Declare the public, anybody wishing to be heard in the matter should appear at the time and date specified or submit concerns in writing. I declare the public hearing open at 6:49. Good evening, sir.
You doing?
Good.
I just want to apologize for being underdressed. I'm just coming back from work. I see everybody's dressed really nice, and I'm just
That's
all...
okay.
You're here.
You're here, that's a big thing. Mr. Administrator, have a little background?
I think the applicant meets the requirements. Would you like to hear more about what the plan is? I would suggest letting him take the floor.
93.
Sir, open it up to you. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your business, what you want.
So I graduated in 2012 from Shepherd Hill, and I've been working at a local shop here in Dudley for over 8 years, and I decided to go on my own. So I've been on my own for almost 8 months on 93 Schofield Ave, and so I do all types of auto repair, and I detail cars. It's a pretty big lot over there, but I don't use the whole lot, and I just looking to expand, you know, so.
So which one's 93? Is that the,
That used to be an
nursery?
old Dudley nursery.
Right. Oh. So you share it with the is a granite company there?
Yeah, there's a granite company there. There's also BuildMax, which they do masonry work, but they pretty much just use it for storage of their equipment, trucks and stuff like that, which I do service as well. And then there's me on the lot as well. So I do the auto repairs there. So the place is fenced in. It's got gates, cameras, and everything. So.
As part of our packet, we have a letter from the building inspector which states you have the ability to have 4 parking spots, 1 handicap spot along the building, and then you have room for 5 additional spaces.
Yes, sir.
So that's gonna be, what's your limit gonna be, the 5? You can use the spaces for cars, or is that for people coming into your shop?
There's gonna be 1 handicap spot for the handicap, and then there's gonna be 4 spots to line up the cars that are gonna be out for sale. I'm not planning to run a huge operation over there with, you know, over 5 or more cars to sell. But and the rest of the spots are just gonna be for customers picking up and dropping off cars and stuff like that.
Okay. Seems like the checklist that we gave him, he did his research.
The checklist has been completed, Mr. Chairman. The application is complete on 9/23. The taxes are up to date. The bond has been executed for $50,000. Legal notice was posted. The query was approved. The abutters are all notified via certified mail. We have a letter from the building inspector that you just mentioned, Mr. Chairman, and the plan has been approved, which is attached in the back here. So I think we're in pretty good shape to take action on it.
George, you guys aren't on here, that's not in your protection district or anything, is it?
That just falls outside the 400, so we already looked into that before.
All right. Think it's all right? All right. Any questions for the applicant? Mr. Johnson?
No, not this time.
Mr. Massey?
No, always like to see a local business owner doing well, so this is good.
Mr. Siganevich?
No questions. I know we're encouraging new businesses in town, and this gentleman's dotted his i's, crossed his t's. Nothing?
Mr. Administrator, you good?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
Police? Highway, everything's good? Chair will declare, anybody from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none. Close the public hearing at 6:50. Chair will entertain a motion of the board.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve a Class 2 license for Zoom Auto Service at 93 Schofield Ave in Dudley for our owner Alexander Wasilewski.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any further questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Congratulations.
Great.
Good luck.
Thank you so much. Have a good night.
You too.
You want to give him that before he leaves, right? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, come in tomorrow, get the signed copy and all that.
Yes.
Okay,
Thank you.
good luck.
Okay, thanks.
Give us 1 sec while we're signing this. Everybody, thank you.
Clear out all the other stuff.
Let's go right through it.
Let's go. Yeah, you're right.
Next up, under old business, DMA Holding, request to negotiate a host community agreement, selectmen to vote or take any action relative thereto. Greetings again, gentlemen.
Gentlemen, how are you?
Good. Just for the record, you guys can just go through and do the introductions again.
Nick Adamopoulos from Lakeshore Legal.
Joe Vladico from DMA Holdings.
Bobby Nichols, Fat Panda.
Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Chairman, this vote is, my understanding is that they're going to ask a kind of a pro forma question. They're going to request to negotiate a host community agreement with us, and it will be the board's purview to vote affirmative or negative to move forward with a host community agreement.
All right, so after the vote, what's next?
The next step will be, depending on how the board decides they want to set up a negotiating team, we'll engage the services of town council, and I'll work with the applicant and town council, and we'll move forward from there. We'll start with a pre-formatted host community agreement, so we have a baseline to establish, and
Then it becomes town-specific.
correct.
Gentlemen, anything you want to ask?
Well, at
Oh,
this
we'll do it
point,
outside the public hearing. Oh, no, it's not a public hearing.
at this point, per the regulations, we would come before you and ask for permission to move forward with the host agreement. We're also here to answer any questions that anyone has. I know that we've sent some emails back that have come up over since our last meeting, but if you guys have anything else, we would certainly like to answer those at this point, too.
Any questions, Mr. Johnson?
No, just one comment. Thank you for taking the time to go through those questions.
Right.
Got those emailed back to us, so both questions from neighbors and from board members, so I appreciate you guys doing
Yeah, they
it.
were quick, too. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Massey?
Yeah, same. I mean, just feedback I've gotten from residents has been all over the place, as you might imagine. So, have you had anybody run into anybody who's asked questions to you guys as you see people in the area?
I've had some people kind of reach out to me, and I don't live in town anymore. But everything that I've gotten is positive feedback. I think one of the most positive, some of the most positive feedback I've gotten is that somebody that actually grew up here is bringing back, and I've heard that from several people, and that's obviously been my number one initiative this whole time. So it's good to hear that, and I hope that everybody else sees that in the same light. And all we can ask for is your guys' blessing, and we'll move forward with this in the most professional way, and we'll bring a lot back to the community.
Mr. Ziganavich?
I just want to echo what Mr. Johnson said. Thank you for being great with communication. You're definitely getting off on the wrong foot. Right foot, sorry. I only had one coffee today, sorry. You're getting off on the right foot, and I thank you for that.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah, I echo a little bit what John said. I think it's tilted more in favor of, I think people are excited, they're looking forward to it, they like the presentation. You know, they obviously want to see the fruition, the end game, but I think everything so far has been right up front, and you guys have been more than accommodating with the public hearing, the request, the community meeting we had. And I echo Mr. Johnson, you're quick to respond on the emails. I mean, there's been no hesitation, there's been no, anything like didn't get overturned that we, you know, I mean, any stone was overturned to answer a question, so.
I'll answer anything, and going forward, if you guys have any more questions, or anyone from the public does, if you get those to me, I'll get you everyone answers.
Right.
We want to be forthright with everything.
Oh, we certainly appreciate it. Very exciting time in Dudley, we got a lot of.
And the board, Mr. Chairman, is
Definitely.
committed to making sure this remains a very open and transparent process.
Just gonna say-
Absolutely.
I was just gonna say that, Mr. Ruda. And, you know, the objections that I would get were more society-based, right? Not necessarily overarching concerns about messaging to kids and stuff like that, which we covered at the last meeting, and, you know, but what will it look like in 10 years, right?
Yeah.
And I think people get that this is going to be a commodity pretty quickly, and if we do nothing, then kind of miss the boat a little bit.
Oxford just opened their first recreational, I think, yesterday, actually, so.
Was it yesterday? Oh.
I took a ride by, they had the, you know, Oxford at all, it's the old Webster Spring, it's gone now, it's like a parking lot, they have a mill in the back.
Yep.
And that's where they were parking off-site, and they were, literally, it's only 1,000 feet, maybe, not even. They were shuttle busing, had like a shuttle van, just bringing them down.
And
dropping
their-
them off.
Their mandate was for, I believe, 1 month of employment only.
Yeah.
Online, and they also set up a tent for the first 2 weeks.
I
If
saw
anyone
that next
showed
to
up,
the
so they would
building.
say you have to set up and come back for your allotted time.
Right. Well, get to that point too, I hope. Any further questions? Anybody from the public? Hearing none. Chair will entertain a motion. Mr. Johnson.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to accept the request to negotiate a host community agreement with DMA Holdings.
Motion made.
Second.
Second by Mr. Marcy. Any questions or concerns? Hearing none. All in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank you guys very much.
I mean, it doesn't matter if you guys, I think our next step would be to gauge some board member interests to maybe sit on that committee.
I'm going to be a little bit, just to be a little bit picky about the motion. The motion was to accept or to approve the request to negotiate,
To accept the request.
which means to approve the
Right.
request?
Yeah.
Okay, just to clarify
Yeah,
publicly.
just for the
Yeah.
record, accepting is we're approving
Okay,
to move forward.
works for me.
With the negotiation.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think we should, if we want to do it tonight, it's up to this board, I guess. Gauge board member interest to at least get on the initial.
Well, that's a good point. Through the chair, what do you, like you had on your report, you mentioned for the mill, do you have a similar format, Jonathan, for that you'd like to see? Like how many of us and how many of so-and-so?
Or is it just selectmen?
I would say not just selectmen. I think
no,
it should
yeah.
be maybe 2 selectmen, Board of Health, Police Chief, Planning, at minimum.
When you
Those,
have
and maybe a
broad-
member at large Economic Development
I like that.
Only to,
for negotiation.
right, yeah, because the approval would end with us.
Right, it all ends here, but it'll never end if we do it.
Right, I don't want to
If we
get,
start here and we end here, it'll never end. So
Right.
we should probably loop everybody in on the outset.
yeah, I don't want to spread the base out so much that we can't, if we get 6 or 8 people, we can't pick a time we can all
I
meet
think
to,
5
you
to
know?
7 is a good number.
I'd say no
Small
more,
working
maybe.
team, Mr. Chair.
No more. Mr. Marcy.
Well, I think just such a big project as this, I really think the chairman needs to be involved in this. So I would say you could be part of it, and, you know, Kerry, you've been on FAA, since you're already on the, you know,
Yeah, I'm on the mill.
mill thing, maybe you guys, I mean, just suggesting. I got the dispatch thing, so I figured.
Yeah, I don't have a problem. I don't have a problem representing the town, sitting on that.
I don't either, I don't have a problem. We can't have 1 or 2 people on the board doing everything, we're a board, we
Yeah.
spread it out.
Spread it out.
No, but the chair, I definitely think the chair.
All right, so we'll take that in the form of a motion that Terry and I will be representative of the board on that
All right.
committee.
That's my motion then.
Motion made.
Second.
Second. Any further questions or concerns? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous.
Thank you, gentlemen.
We got it going.
Very much.
thank
All right, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming in again.
Yep.
Clean up the other stuff first, or are we gonna recess for the?
So I'll do pretty much like I did with the mill and just do the rest of the appointments, the town administrators ad hoc committee type thing,
I'm talking about
knowing that the 2 members from the selectmen will be yourself, Mr. Chairman, and Mr. Sigenovich, and if we could just do a recess so that we can set up for
I was gonna
the...
say, you wanna clean up the other stuff first, or do a recess for these
Sure,
guys?
if that works for me. Sure, it works for the department heads.
With everybody's
Yeah, let's do it.
pleasure, if you don't mind, we have 4 more things we have to get to, so we're gonna just take them a little bit out of order. We're gonna go to 9B first. Paul Lane Circle Drive Annual Appeal to Plow and Sand. Vinnie? Paul Lane? Yep. Michelle, did the residents come in?
Kristen came in last week. Unless you-
So it's the same, basically a continuation of the last, with them
That's
pursuing
our
the betterment program.
policy.
Do we have any progress? Because I think the original motion way back wasn't just like an automatic
No.
reapproval. Wasn't they supposed to show some kind of progress towards?
Well, they have the road betterment program now that they're working towards. But wait for Jonathan to come in. Clear out the parking waiver.
Yeah, we're waiting for Jonathan. First Congregational Church parking waiver, request a waiver on Center Road, Saturday, December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day, 2019, from 10 to 4, annual Christmas fair, goods and service auction. Chief, you good with that?
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Marcy, seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Next one, I want to wait for Jonathan. Oh, he's back. So Jonathan, on Paula Lane, it's generally not like just a pro forma vote. Do we have like an update? There's supposed to be,
I have an update, Mr. Chairman.
you're gonna make it.
As long as I can make it through the update. The update is that we have submitted, I've submitted the work done by my predecessor to town council for review before we move forward with putting it on any sort of a warrant. And I don't have a legal update for you right now. I'm not sure I can give it publicly if I did, but we're working the issue. And I've been in contact with the residents there as well, to let them know, with your representative, to let them know we're working the issue. And the highway superintendent can report out as to whether or not he believes that we can get through another season.
Because didn't we have some damage last year, Vinnie, to some of the
We did,
vehicles?
we did. Actually, the town administrator, I gave him a list of private roads in town, the ones that we are plowing, and the road conditions, and there's nothing getting any better. Well, I take that back. There's one, Piasta Road, I think, was just paved today.
Oh, you paved over the top?
Yeah, the private section. So everything that we're taking care of is just getting worse and worse and worse, and it's gonna beat up the equipment and break stuff.
We're gonna have to, I know a few years ago, we had it was ill-fated from the get-go. I don't think it was handled properly. We're gonna have to figure something out.
So we discussed it today, the highway superintendent and I, and we could probably get through this as being the final season without there being a major problem with snow removal down there in terms of public safety. And I'm pretty convinced that we'll have some sort of a legal answer within, and probably before the winter's out, as to how we're gonna proceed with that entire matter.
All of them, or just that one?
That one in particular. But we're working the other issues as well.
Okay. Mr. Massey?
Based on the bylaw stuff. you were
Correct.
talking about. Okay, betterment and everything, okay.
The betterment, we're handling the other issues through the betterment. Michelle and I are gonna work on that, and just haven't started it yet, but we will. But the more pending, the more immediate matter is Paul Lane and Circle Drive. That was scheduled to be placed on the fall warrant, and we pulled it off because we sent it to legal review, and we wanted to make sure that it received the proper legal review that it needed before the town went any further with it. So that's where we're at this point, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
And I've been in contact with Chris Mallett, who's kind of the representative for that community, no less than 2 or 3 times in person to discuss the issue, so they're fully aware as to what's happening.
Johnson, good?
I'm just looking at a map.
John?
Well, I mean, if we have that, then do you want to vote now? A motion to at least approve get through this winter in lieu of that?
We need to get through this winter.
Okay.
I take the highway superintendent at his word that we're probably right at the end of being able to do anything over there, so.
So at what point do we, as a town, can't absorb the damage? You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're going down an approved roadway and something happens.
Right, well, there's a risk involved, no question about it. There's no question about it, there's a risk. There's a risk in not plowing it. There's a risk in plowing it. The risk is, it's still a risk and not a liability quite yet, but I think next year it's a liability, so.
So,
I gotta continue to move forward and get some closure for the whole Paul Lane Circle Drive issue. And my goal is to get some closure at the spring town meeting, one way or another, if it's feasible to do so.
not just
Yeah.
them, on maybe more, because if there's others
Maybe
that are
more.
in worse shape.
Right.
So, don't want to be the voice of doom and gloom here. These people, our residents, our fellow residents, have to understand the town's coming to a tipping point.
Right, and in their defense, I have to say that they followed what they were asked to do.
Over here.
At Paul Lane Circle Drive, they got out and they did exactly what they were supposed to do for the betterment.
Right,
They brought it back to us, and now we need to provide them with an answer.
okay,
And I want to provide them with the right one, that's why there's a delay.
okay.
That makes sense.
Chair will entertain a motion for a vote for light plowing and light sanding, or however, whatever we've done in the past, Paul Lane Circle Drive. Mr. Massey.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the annual appeal for the Paul Lane and Circle Drive residents for the town of Dudley to plow and sand as we have the last several years, while they work through the betterment program.
Motion made. Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor state aye,
Aye.
and unanimous. Yeah, we're just gonna keep working on it, but keep, obviously, the administrator in the loop, not just that private road, any other ones.
I applaud these people. I believe that they're the only ones that actually, I believe the footage was in the majority to go ahead with this betterment.
Correct.
Yeah, which is, that's a big step for them to
Huge.
take.
I mean,
It's
that
a
was-
huge
That's
step.
the one I didn't think we were
Yeah.
gonna get.
Yeah, because now the next one's gonna, well, I don't wanna point fingers, but we have other roads out there that are just as bad.
Exactly, this is,
People are gonna have to beat the bushes too.
yeah.
I remember a quick fun story. I see my good friend Peter Fox in the audience. I remember when we ran Peter, that was like one of the big issues, like 7.5, almost 8 years ago, so we're still talking about it. So,
Listen, I got you beat, I was on the planning board like 15 years ago. It was a big issue. Still
Thank
is. Thanks, Vinnie.
thanks, Ben.
Last one on the new business, debt exclusion, street sweeper, selectmen to vote, place on the spring warrant. Mr. Administrator.
This is it's another vote. We borrowed the money at the town meeting, and we had past discussions when we discussed the supplemental about the intention of the board to place this up for a debt exclusion vote. If that's still the board's intention, I would request that you vote to that effect, and we'll transmit that vote to the town clerk's office to be placed on the spring ballot. And here's the question that would be appearing on the ballot.
Now, before anybody starts firing up their email and phone, this language is pro forma, put out by the state, already verified by council,
Correct.
Attorney General's office. This is not we're reading somebody else's words as it means to our end.
We paid to have that legally drafted for
Correct.
us.
Shall the town of Dudley be allowed to exempt from the provisions of Proposition 2 1/2, so-called, the amounts required to pay for the bond issued in order to purchase a 2019 Elgin Pelican street sweeper with associated equipment or an equivalent street sweeper? Yes, no, and provide further that said question shall be deemed approved if a majority of the person voting shall vote yes at a duly posted meeting of the Board of Selectmen, Monday, November 4th, 2019, at 6:30 PM. Ballot for insertion on the June 15th, 2020 spring town election. Chair will entertain a motion to accept as read.
Really?
I'll step down, I'll step down from chair, and I'll make a motion that we accept it,
No, I'm reading it.
accept it as read.
No,
So moved.
second.
Moved by Mr. Sigenovich, seconded by Mr. Massey.
Oh, you have it? I was just finishing reading it.
Any questions?
Yeah, so, I mean, this board's always made a practice of letting the residents decide, especially when it comes to like things like equipment, which we really need. I mean, we've been through chapter and verse of why the street sweeper is the way, in the shape that it's in now, and with duct tape and coat hangers, and so I think it's a good idea. I mean, I voted no in the last couple of debt exclusions that people wanted, but this is something we need to, it'll be a good investment for us, and it'll come off the tax rolls when we're done paying for it. What was the total amount that was approved?
I think it was 225, Mr.
225?
So we have, we're retiring a lot of debt
Right.
over the next couple of years. And based on that capital improvement program that we just recently completed, our debt is somewhere in the 4% range. We established a number. The best practice for a town our size is about 10% debt to carry. We're at about four and change right now, and we're retiring some over the next few years. So we absolutely can and should be picking up this debt, as opposed to trying to pay for it through the general fund. This is the correct way to finance something like that.
You know, people gotta understand too, that it's a frontline piece of equipment. It's going to get used, and not only is it out there picking up your sand and your small debris, but it also plays into our stormwater management when we start getting questions from the state, and I believe we paid a fine a few years ago.
The EPA was questioning, when I was appointed, was ready to fine us, because we hadn't filed reports in several years, and we weren't capable of addressing our stormwater issues. And that's the EPA, not the DEP, the federal. Correct.
Right, and that's what starts to play into it. It's not just the fact that highway wants a nice new shiny truck to pick stuff up off the side of the road. There's some things that this truck is gonna alleviate.
That we're required to do.
Right, and if we don't do it, it's not gonna matter if you know the guy on the other end of the phone or you don't. We're gonna get hit, we're gonna get hit hard.
Correct.
What's the second average?
What is the difference if this, well, we don't need to know this now, but when it goes to Springtown meeting, I just want the residents to know what happens if they vote yes, what happens if they vote no, because we're already buying the equipment. As far as if it's debt excluded, it's debt excluded. If it isn't, this is the way we're paying for it. Just so
If
people can
it's-
make a proper decision, that's all.
If it's debt excluded, then it's paid for over the course of 5 years or less. I believe that's what we talked about, Mr. Treasurer, over the course of 5 years. There's a small amount added to the tax rate to pay for that loan, versus we come up with the annual payment for it out of the general fund, which pulls, of course, from other services. So either way we have to get it. How we pay for it is up to the voter.
Right. Mr. Johnson?
So, 50,000 plus, small amount per year for 5 years.
Correct. Still a great time to borrow. Less than 3% if it's short term. Can't tell you what the rates are gonna be in 5 years, but good time to borrow. Mr. Root is 100% correct. 2023, 2024, this building will be paid for, and that's $400,000 of annual debt payments that'll disappear, plus the interest. You need to plan today to replace that and add to it. If you have a $20 million budget, do your math. You should be paying $2 million in debt service. That's right about 10%. Okay? Anything that's debt excluded is sort of extra. So you have that ability to have 10% debt above and beyond your 20 million, so that when you go to repair the roof, you're not scrambling just to make a interest-only payment. All of these things should be in the queue. Back to, we went over the capital improvement spreadsheet today, and there's a portion in there that deals with current debt plus debt we just passed plus the future debt, and the idea is to map out and maintain that 10%. It's not going to be a perfect 10%. When you go to buy a house, 30% of what you earn should go for your home expenses. They don't want somebody leveraging up to 40%. If you did it in 25% and everything was covered, great. You put down enough money and had the great credit for it. Same thing with the town. 10% is a ballpark. They're figuring, the CPA firm that recommended this, it's a better government practice. The idea is that you should be fixing everything every 10 years, give or take. The 10% would fix everything, or get the majority of your capital projects done once every 10 years. There's going to be a few things that are every 5 years, maybe every 3 like a cruiser,
or every 20 like this building. There's plenty of projects. I would never suggest trying to get to 10% because we need to make it to 10%. But the idea is there are a few items on there that have been sorely lacking.
When we ignore the idea of, there seems to be sometimes a premise that if you buy a house and you get a mortgage, I mean, if you buy a house and get a mortgage or you finance a vehicle, it doesn't mean you can't manage your own personal finances. That means that you need to, you need to maintain a certain amount of solvency throughout the term of the, and it's no different from a community our size. It's what the debt ratio is that you really have to take a look at. If you don't borrow, you end up paying for a new roof well before it's ready because you haven't maintained it or repaired it. HVAC, a generator fails because you didn't spend the small amount of money to maintain it or update it. These are things that we should be doing, and these are things that when you look at a community profile, if a community is not spending, has no debt and is not spending that kind of money, there's a real problem, as opposed to people look at it as, well, we look at our tax rates are low, but what happens when the sewer infrastructure fails or the water fails? Then you have to put $1 million in borrowing on one warrant, and then hope to debt exclude it and pay for it, like we just saw. So this should be looked at and embraced, this plan that we had, this capital improvement plan, as opposed to, it's a debt exclusion. That means people are gonna have to pay for stuff. You pay a little tiny bit now to save so much into the future.
Right, we're talking about different projects and different things that we purchased. I was on capital improvement, I'm not on anymore. Rich has been ad hoc, non-voting member since it started. Peter Fox has been on many years. Like you said, some of the stuff is just, you have to do it. It's penny wise, pound foolish. Or, like you said, you have a roof that leaks as soon as the warranty period ends. Gee, what a shock, how did that happen?
Right.
HVAC fails because you didn't maintain it, because we didn't have any money set aside. Gee, what a shock, how did that happen?
Well, the good news, Mr. Chairman, as you know, especially to the resident, is that we're now putting money away in capital improvement stabilization, into our own stabilization. So when a $38,000 cruiser comes up, we don't necessarily have to borrow for it. We pay for it, we have it, and we can plan for it. So it's not just we borrow it all or we save it all. There's a good combination of both.
Right, a big ticket item like this, it has to be done. Like Kerry said, we're gonna have to get the message out. Here's the impact if we don't. I know Jay was saying 50-something thousand. Well, we start getting to the bottom of the budget, 50,000 is a public safety person maybe. It's hours at the town hall. It wasn't that long ago that we were in dire straits and the town rolled back the hours at the town hall.
2004, sir.
Yeah, doesn't seem like it was sooner than that, but it was. And then people are calling saying, I can't come pay my bills because you were closed. Well,
It's actually hard to imagine that it got to that point. It literally, for me, is hard to imagine that we actually let it get to that point. But it is what it is, going forward.
I always tell everyone, it's not something I certainly don't look back with relish. My first vote as a Board of Selectmen member was to lay off 2 police officers because the town meeting didn't fund the entire request.
Right.
And if you want to talk about a painful vote, think about that. And
Well,
as you
we
said, that
have
was right, and right after that was the rollback of the hours. Michelle was working at that, we all know.
And we have the ability to get the message out a little better now, even with that software that the town meeting agreed to pay for.
Yeah,
And show the public how their money is being spent, why it needs to be spent this way, and what the long-term plan is.
it can't be any drier, but that capital improvement meeting that we had, where the gentleman came in with the capital study, it clearly laid out what the town's looking at and what we're up against.
Right.
It went out, I forget how many years, it went out for infinity if we wanted it to.
Absolutely, went out 10 years.
Yeah, you can just extrapolate and keep extrapolating. Mr. Marcy?
Do you guys have any initial figures, since we're talking about it? And people might watch, or it might end up in the paper of what we're
Or
looking at, the amount to,
you probably want to set the get closer to setting the tax rate before you can figure out.
all right. Okay, someone's
It's
gonna ask.
$225,000. It's not going to be
Okay.
insurmountable.
Spread
On
over-
top of retiring debt, it's going to be
spread over retiring debt and spread over 6,600 parcels.
That's what I'm trying to get, it's gonna be small, right?
It's gonna be
But
small.
it'd be nice if we had some numbers, but do you have any idea when we will know? Exact numbers?
The assessor would be the one, when they have their classification hearing, right? They're gonna have their public hearing, and they're going to say it's X per thousand. They'll give the median. I'm sure there's a modal number to commercial. You'd be able to back into it to come up with
Just
it.
make sure we have those numbers, like, it's gonna go up this, but then go down that.
And,
Just an observation, have you ever provided that number and had anybody say, oh, it's only that amount? Or have they always said, it's still too much?
Well,
The joke is,
seriously.
it's just a cup of coffee here a day.
You're right.
I was gonna roll to my
That
right
number
over
doesn't
here.
do much for me. I mean,
I can't measure it in cups of coffee anymore.
No.
Well, to be
That's what
fair,
I'm saying.
we
That's where I was
always,
going.
we always try to anticipate what's gonna happen, and when the override passed a few years ago, it was a good informative process that led up to it. It was grassroots. A lot of people got involved. I mean, I don't do social media like some of my fellow board members, but there was a lot of positive information out there which generated the goodwill when the message got out. I mean, and that was an override. We're talking about a 5-year or less, and Rich, nobody needs to defend Rich. He does a great job, but I mean, there's been times we paid off bonds early.
Your library
Library
was
is the
paid in
biggest
5
example.
years.
Yeah, I mean, we listen, I don't want to kick the can so far down the road we get off the beaten path here.
Right.
Nobody's ever, as long as I've been a selectman, no one can ever look and say, personally, I've not been a good steward of the town's money, and I'm comfortable with the board. Like I said, I don't want to keep pointing at him. Mr. Fox served a lot of years on the board, and nobody I've ever served with has not been a good steward of the town's money. Mr. Johnson, including Mr. Johnson.
For 3 weeks I've been here. So town meeting, we approved the purchase. So now, 52 people approved the well.
Approved,
it was
taking out
unanimous. It was unanimous. 52
Yep.
people approved it, so now we have to pay for it. So
Correct,
let's find the most economical way to pay for it.
correct.
And if you don't like things like that, show up at town meeting.
Whoa, who's he sound like? I think I'm rubbing off on him. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, state aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Off to the next step in the process. Thank one and all. Now we're gonna return to our regularly, real quick, conflict of interest training, Monday, November 25th, 2019, 6:30 PM, Veterans Memorial Hall, this room, 321A, Brian Riley, Esquire, KP Law, sponsored by the Board of Selectmen and Town Administrator. All employees, board members, committee members, anybody who's an elected official, appointed official, anybody who cares that wants to come in and see what goes on, is all welcome, encouraged to attend. Food and refreshments will be provided at the conclusion of the meeting. You can't come and eat and leave. If you have a chance, just send your name into the Selectman's office, so we may have an idea, but it should be an informative, action-packed, fun-filled,
And mandatory.
mandatory, for those that fall under it, exciting event.
Some more than others.
Some be more excited than others, and some might need the training more than others.
That's what I meant.
Chair. So does this replace the online training?
I don't think it replaces it. This is outside of it. This is,
Well, the online training is something that you get through in 7 minutes and click, 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 and don't digest anything. We're gonna try to apply this to real-world things that happen on a daily basis here at the town hall.
Chief. Oh. Well, as Mr. Johnson was talking about the online, I don't know if they ever shake the questions up, but one of the best ones ever was, your brother is the highway superintendent in town, and you own like a construction firm. Is it okay for him to ask you for material? I mean, really, I mean, like you said, it's click, 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 click. If you get it wrong, you get a second chance. If you get it wrong, you get a third chance. This is something that KP Law, I think, sponsors as part of their contract
Correct.
with the town. So if you want to see your tax dollars as budgeted through town meeting at work. This is an excellent opportunity to come in and see your board members.
And we're gonna make, Mr. Chairman, we're gonna make this an annual event.
Well, we have an annual one-a-year training included from town council. This year, I thought that the conflict of interest, I chose it, I thought it was the most needed. So that's the one we'll have this year. Next year,
one.
we'll pick another one.
It's good. It's good.
Something else.
Yep.
Chief Wayner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just before you get into the other thing, I just wanted to get a couple of things, if you have the opportunity for just me to mention a couple of things to you. First of all, we had the drug take-back last Saturday. Dave Carpenter was here because I was gone at the time. He came in and ran it. It was very successful. Again, we had another probably 5 or 6 boxes full of prescriptions, and we have a bunch of needles and things down there. The highway superintendent is going to give us a hand to return back out to Harrington Hospital on that. So, but again, another very popular event. That one went through. Secondly is November is starting, so this is both our holiday drive that we're getting into, as we do every year. So we'll be accepting the donations for that coming up. And also, some of the guys will be participating in No Shave November. I usually try to participate in it, but my beard growing is very sparse, I guess you could say. So I choose not to participate in those things. I'll do other things, but if you see some of that going around, that's the thing. Whole goal is to raise some money for some donations that are coming through. And lastly, for me, I was at the IACP conference out in Chicago last week. I again thank the board for supporting me and going to do that. Some great opportunities to go to some great training on de-escalation, community outreach, a lot of focus on mental health and police suicides. That's been more prevalent. Had a lot of some good information on some of the updates on elderly financial scams that are going on, protecting places of worship, a bunch of other things. So it was really, really beneficial. Unless there's an objection, I'll plan on going again next year down to New Orleans. I think it's coming up in October. And the more the earlier I can get things going, the more money you save on booking on things. But a great opportunity, excellent chance to meet a lot of people from all over the place. Got to see the president speak, which is always lively and entertaining. If you've ever had a chance to go, I highly recommend it. But no matter where you sit on the side of the political fence, it's very entertaining. But again, I just want to thank the board for all the support and everything over the time. So unless there's any questions, I thank you for your time.
Chief, want to do your report real quick, or you want to?
That's what I was going to give you right there, so, yeah.
Yep. No. Thank you, Chief.
Yeah, I kind of gave you the synopsis there. I don't think there's much else that's going on really for things. But again, yeah, trick-or-treating worked out good. There was no real issues. I know we had a discussion on that. I think the only time that we've canceled it really was the time we had the ice storm a few years back. And that was because we had half the town without power, and there were power lines down, and we were using one of the schools as a shelter, so that it made sense to kind of move it. But otherwise, those things don't normally work their way out in the trend, so everything went pretty good.
Chief, I just want to say too, timing in life is everything, and I'm real, without going into names, I'm very, very happy that the tree that fell on the cruiser fell on the cruiser, not on the officer.
Yes.
That's how close it is.
Yes. So, yeah, so for the benefit of those who don't know, we have a cruiser that's out of action because we had a tree that was down on Dudley Southbridge Road. And as the officer was out trying to help move the tree off the road, another one fell right on the hood of the car. So that's at the auto body shop now. But yeah, very fortunate, knock on wood, that nobody was seriously injured.
Right, I mean, there was an incident there in Webster not too long ago, and the poor gentleman was driving along.
He was killed,
yeah,
yes.
right by the cemetery.
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
5 seconds either way.
You got it. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chief.
Vinny, you want to do your report real quick? Good. George, water sewer?
Good evening. As you guys know, if there's some activity going down at the Station 3 pumping station, they're starting to pound the new well in. So if anybody's interested in that, you can always go down, pop in and take a look. Should take a month or so as they go through it, but it's quite an interesting process. So hopefully, once we get that in, then we start going for permits and approvals for DEP. And I'd like to try to get that well in service by at least sometime this winter.
Nice. Thanks, George.
Thanks, George. Thanks.
Let's go,
Wow.
right there. Quick recess, we all set to run.
In 5 minutes, just let them get settled.
Let's have a 5-minute recess, because we're going to set up We have the compensation study presentation. We just need about 5 minutes, folks, so take a quick break, Fred. Chief, thank you.
Thanks, Chief.
Thanks for the tweet from the comedy hour, the president's speech.
That was pretty cool.
Really? Up and sit up front, or?
Pardon me?
You gonna come sit up front, or no? Good.
All right.
Greetings, everyone, we're back. So I thank the people, the Human Resource Service, Inc., for letting us go through the agenda so we can clear the table. It's you guys from here till the end. We have all the time in the world.
Okay.
Need.
Right.
So I'm gonna ask you folks to just identify yourselves for the folks at home, and then we can start your presentation.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting us, and thank you, Mr. Ruda. I know I've had a few conversations with Mr. Ruda about this and how important it was to the town. I'm Sandy Stapchinsky, and this is Buzz Stapchinsky. Oh, it's restarting. That. Anyway, and we are with Human Resources Services, and we provide technical assistance to cities and towns in all areas of HR management. I think something happened to, I think your computer is updating.
Oh, goodness.
That's okay. So anyway, thank you very much for being here. And, oh, I don't know what happened. So, just some technical difficulty, and we'll get it done.
I can't believe this.
Can you believe it?
I don't know. Click share. I don't know. That's not me. I don't.
No,
I don't
it's
know.
actually the computer updating.
Oh, okay. So it happens sometimes.
When it updates.
So let me just tell you a little bit about the company while we're waiting here. Buzz has some brochures that he's going to give out to everyone while we're waiting, just so you can have a better understanding of the services that we provide. We provide a host of services in HR and also in general management. Our company has been in existence for 30 years, and we have provided services to almost every city and town in Massachusetts. We specifically specialize in compensation and classification. That's about 75% of our work, and we're very, very busy and very active in. It's on the. It's on here. Click share. So, oh, okay. So we're quite active in that area. We're curious to know, what your specific needs are here. But what I did was I put together a presentation just to,
Don't touch it.
I better not touch it, to give you an idea of, the variety of services that we can provide for you depending on your scope and your need. And I understand you have a personnel committee as well. And I don't know if any of them are here today. Oh, are you on the personnel board? Oh,
Peter Fox, Chairman of the Personnel Board.
Peter Fox, well, it's a pleasure to meet you, and
Nice to meet you.
thank you for inviting us. And we work very closely with personnel boards throughout Massachusetts. We have, we've enjoyed working with, we've worked with very many boards, and we enjoy that. And I'm sure in any engagement that we have here, we would certainly work with your board as well. So, all right, so now I just wanted to, I gave you a little bit of background about our company. We have probably about 8 consultants that we use on and off, and we provide, like I said, a variety of services, not just HR, but also general management as well. We're sort of a, I'd like to say we're like a municipal fusion consulting firm, because the core of our work is HR, but we do a lot of municipal, work as well. Now, this is a more complete listing of some of the things that we do. Just in terms of my own experience, I used to work for the Mass Municipal Association, and I also worked for the Department of Revenue. Buzz was a town manager, and I think he actually did something for your community with another company that we are affiliated with. They're sort of like our sister company, Municipal Resources, and so we partner with them, and we have a strategic alliance with them. So I know Buzz did that work with that company.
About a year ago with
So
Bob
he-
Mercier. We looked at water, putting, joining water and
DPW study.
DPW study.
department. So, but it was about a year ago that I think we were doing, late fall, maybe early winter.
Yeah, and
We,
Buzz does
finished
a
up
lot
the
of,
report.
yeah, and he does a lot of recruitment too with them, throughout Massachusetts and New England. So between the two companies, we have this synergy, and we're very busy throughout New England, and it's just wonderful. We enjoy our work very much. Just to go over the list of the services that we provide related to HR: compensation classification, job description, salary benefits and total compensation analytics, workforce analysis, staffing studies, performance appraisals, personnel policies, handbooks, HR assessments, and also, a design of an HR department. We'll actually go in and design your human resource department for you. Any training and development related to HR, and that could be performance training, or it could be, collective bargaining training, management and organizational studies, strategic HR plans, and technical support. Sometimes we're actually hired by labor attorneys as an expert witness to do that type of service. We write the ordinances and the bylaws, and we do some, web solutions as well. At any time, given the year, we probably have about 25 projects going simultaneously throughout New England. And like I said, out of 351 cities and towns, I'm sure we've been to, 299 of them.
How long you been in business?
So I think I said that, 30 years.
30
So
years.
30, but really, I have been doing this for 35 years, so a long time. I started young, I was 12, so, but anyway, so as we understand what Dudley, and of course, we would have to get more specific, because, with comp and class, there's so many variables and so many different needs that an organization wants. So, one of the things that these are just some items that we could do for you. We would develop a compensation philosophy, would probably work closely with the town administration and the personnel board and the board of selectmen. In a compensation classification plan, you want to have progressive levels that are logical and that make sense. And also, we want to be able to audit positions and compare them to the market. Job descriptions always need to be updated. If you're dealing in a union environment, we would make sure that you follow the collective bargaining process. And now with the new pay equity laws, we'd want to determine any internal equity and recommend best practices, classification plans. And almost in all of our work, we provide some kind of training for our clients. There are going to be some challenges. I heard, in municipal government right now, believe it or not, it's very hard to recruit. So we're finding that everywhere. Buzz especially is finding that he does a lot of recruitment. So there is competition right now for experienced employees. You also have the internal equity issue now with the new Massachusetts Employment Pay Act. That puts a different layer of analysis into the study to make sure that there is equal pay for equal work, regardless of gender. And so we look at that, and we also look at pay equity with regard to compression, which sometimes happens over time when in your pay scales, where you may have supervisors that are making less than employees because of overtime and other things like that. The job knowledge and skill required in jobs has changed. So in keeping up with that, keeping up with the mandates from the state, the federal government, the mandates from technologies, and how technology has really changed in a lot of our jobs. Just look at where we are today, right? So And then the license requirements, you know, whether you have engineers or water operators or, and the, you know, it's a limited workforce in a very fast-changing economy, and it's really hard to get the young people interested in local government today. So, and what they're, you know, they have different desires and different wants, you know, so the millennials have different interests. So your opportunity with us is to, we could work with you to identify, well, first of all, to identify what positions that you want to look at. And I don't know, I spoke very, very briefly with Mr. Ruda, and I know that there maybe were some non-union or some clerical positions. And I don't know if there are other positions, but to identify, you know, your economy and to identify your comparable communities, sort of your peer communities. And you may already have those. You may already have for other things that you compare yourselves to. So you want to make sure that that is really fleshed out. We look at the Department of Revenue statistics through the data bank, and we understand how to, we want to understand how to best identify and describe position roles that reflect contemporary duties and requisite requirements. So that's important, and to know your competitors. Throughout this whole process, there's a legal process too. So there's a law called the Fair Labor Standards Act. There's also another law called the Americans with Disabilities Act, Equal Employment, Pay Equity, and other legal requirements. So we want all of this to be legally compliant for you. If there are union positions, we would look at the union contracts, of course. And, you know, I know for another town, we were collecting and comparing contracts and ensure compensation policies are in place. So we could also provide for you, you know, ongoing support. Our background in comp and class, like I said, it's like 75% of our work, and we have very deep experience in that. We're published, we've written books. A lot of our people are certified. We have conducted webinars, national webinars through the International City Management Association on pay equity, competitive pay, collective bargaining, performance. You know, we do a lot of performance systems as well. Now it's kind of becoming a new thing with the pay in class. So I'd say, you know, the areas that we spend a lot of our times on is the pay in class and benefits, the job descriptions, the any performance system that would need to be developed, any policies, audits, rules and regulations. So that's a big chunk of what we do, and then we do a lot of, you know, other related items. So our products and our services would include a complete market analysis, and we have a lot of resources for data. We do custom surveys. We also have data through the Department of Labor, the Economic Research Institute. We subscribe to Bloomberg Law, and we have data through them as well. You would have also the comp and class plans that we would work very closely with our clients. Job descriptions. Job descriptions are very simple documents, but they have very important, they're very important to an organization. So for ADA and for recruitment and for hiring, for retention. So they are sort of like the building blocks of your organization. And developing, you know, the guidelines and tools, we'll do that with you and train any key staff. We have a rating system that we use to rate and grade positions, and that's our evaluation tool. It's a position classification and rating system, and it looks at factors such as supervision and accountability and experience, education, And we have a series of rating tools that we use, so depending on the group of positions that you want to use, it would vary on the tool that we would use. And we also have what's called levelers. So say we developed a series of clerical, there might be a principal office assistant, a senior office assistant, and just to be able to define who they are. So we also work with those as well. So I heard your finance discussion earlier, and there are many financial benefits to Dudley with our system. So when these services will also assist you in not only hiring, retention, but also budgeting, budget planning, your salary, planning. And we also do costs out. We can do multi-year costs out. So our market, so just to explain what we do is we would look at market entry analysis, Dudley compared to the market. We'd look at the industry benchmarking, pricing per employee. We do the pricing per employee. And I don't even know if you want to look at benefits too, but we have the ability to do total comp or just, straight comp. Forecast and planning future salaries, with COLAs and implementation through pay ranges. Once employees are in the pay ranges, how do they move from minimum to maximum? Is it steps or is it a range? Or and do we take into consider longevity? Things like that. And the like I said, the industry market reports also through the Economic Research Institute, the Department of Labor, and also the Mass Municipal Human Resource Association, the former MMPA. They have data, and we're business members with them, and we get their data as well. And they're a great organization. And we look at, the trends, what people are doing. Are they tying it to performance, or are they, with a step system? What's the trend for the range? Is it, a 15% range, a 30% range? So, and we, we work with the clients with this. I talked a little bit about job descriptions. I just wanted to show the slide to you because I think it's, so I think an estimate is we've done, say, 500 projects times the average. Say the project had 100 positions average. Typically, our projects have more than that, but so just say on average 100, that would be 50,000 job descriptions that we've written representing 200 employees. That would be for 100,000 employees, estimate. So we've written a lot of job descriptions. We have quite a database, but it doesn't, no matter how big our database is, it just seems that everybody needs customization. And I don't think that's ever going to go away. And so we have experience. We have experience in local government. We have a proven methodology, and we have a Massachusetts in New England focus. And we are a woman-owned business, and we have been certified, I think, for more than 20 years now in Massachusetts. And I believe, and I'm pretty sure because nobody has challenged me yet, but there's still time, but I believe that we are the first municipal consulting woman-owned business in Massachusetts. I really do think, I don't think anybody else has been certified before us, so I do think we hold that designation, so we get a clap for that. So anyway, next steps, if we are selected to do any work with you, of course, depending on the scope of the work and what it is that you're looking for, I mean, some projects could be under 10,000, so you would not have to go through a bid process. If the project is more than 10,000, or you think that it would be, then you would need to get 3 quotes. If it's over 50,000, you would need to do a professional RFP. Unless you have a policy that says something different. So those are the state requirements, but sometimes the towns have their own more strict requirements. So you may decide, like, gee, if it's 25,000, we may want to do an RFP. So that would be up to you to decide. The other thing you should be aware of is there's all this community compact money, and I know we've done a lot of this work getting with communities that have gotten grants. I think we just did some work in Webster, and I think they got a grant. So there is grant money, out there. I don't know how you go about to get it, but if we were selected, we would define the project more in detail with you, more specifically. We'd want to meet with you, define your specific project needs, your expectation. We'd discuss, all of this, and we would begin our research and submit a plan and and provide ongoing support through the process. So depending on what your needs are, if it's going to be under 10,000, we can submit a proposal. If it's going to be over 10,000, then you'll have to do the RFQ, and when you issue the RFQ, at that time, then we'll send you a proposal. Just so, we don't want to show our hand before the selection process. So anyway, so this is, a little bit about us. We are a unique company because we are completely focused on local government, and that, there are other municipal firms out there, but they also do work in nonprofits, or they might do some private sector work, but we're the only ones that really that do just local government. We're really committed to that profession. I have personally my undergraduate degree in government and my master's in public administration, and then I also did some postgraduate work as well. Our company has business memberships with the MMA, the MMHR, we're members of SHRM, members of World at Work, and a whole other host of organizations. So we're very committed to, and IPMA, if I don't want to forget about them, they're a great organization, and also ICMA. So that's just an overview about us and what we can do, but I'm not sure exactly what your specific need is, so you can feel free to ask me questions now.
Mr. Administrator.
Well, I'm probably the one person at this table who's had more conversation with human resources than anybody here, so now's the chance. They're in the room. What's the methodology they use? Why do they use it? What do they study? Do they look at neighboring communities? Do they do a statewide study? Ask away. Now's the time.
I just want, based on your experience, and we just went through it with the DPW study committee, as Jonathan just said, our administrator, I know you can call up any methodology you want. What do you find more successful? Like, do you find working with comparing to neighboring communities, or do you try to find like-sized communities, or, like-sized budgetary communities? Because it's hard for us, and I think one of our members isn't present tonight. I think one of the big stumbling blocks, and Mr. Fox, who's the personnel board, used to sit up here with us, is it's hard to compare Dudley to local communities, because we really don't compare. Webster's bigger than us. Webster has a different tax base. They have a higher revenue stream. Oxford, bigger than us. Population, my go-to town, for example, is Spencer. It's very similar to us. It's an old mill town. It's a two-town school district like we are. They're not really our neighboring community. They're close. But so what do you, in your experience, what do you find more successful? Like, is it the geographical, or is it to try to find communities?
It's a mix of a variety of things. So usually we start out within a parameter of, a reasonable parameter is within 50-mile parameter of where you are. Within 50 miles, there's a lot. You'd be surprised. And then we just start to zero in more, and we look at, we start there and we say, okay, what do we have here? Then we look at all the data. We look at the population, we look at the budget, we look at.
Can we be interactive? Because my next question would be, if it's 50 miles, is that because of retention? Nobody would normally leave a job?
Yeah, I said 50, 50.
Right, 50 miles.
50 miles is about, well, in terms of compensation,
Yeah.
okay, you're looking at, where are you more likely to recruit from? Where are you,
Right.
is your recruitment base going to come from Martha's Vineyard? Is it going to come from the Berkshires? No, it's going to be, so you want to look within your, now, having said that, for some jobs, sometimes this is more for higher level jobs, sometimes people will come from wherever, but you have to look at the socioeconomics of your, you would not compare Dudley to Andover, for example. They're two totally different communities. So we would look at the socioeconomics, the income per capita, the equalized valuation per capita, the budget, the location. We look at the services that you provide. Do you have, a combined DPW? Do you not have a combined DPW? Do you have, and what's the, if you go on the Department of Revenue website, they actually have like the amount of money by each community that's spent on each functional area, like public works or public safety. And so we look at all of that. So there's a number of statistics that we look at, and then we present it to our client, and we say, these are the communities that we think would be most comparable for these reasons, and then we get your input. So we work closely with the client. We don't just pick them and say, here they are. We usually do our research, and there's some research that has to be done. And then we select them, and then we present them to you, and then we discuss them, and then we narrow the group. So we usually start out with like 20 communities, and we might want to narrow it down to like 12, that we would use as comparables. But in addition to that, we also provide, because of our database, we're also, and the resources we have, so we'll do the custom that would be focused on those comparable peer communities. But then we also provide statewide data as additional supplemental data. So we can show you, okay, this is what your peers are paying in your area. This is how it compares on a statewide basis. So we give you both comparables.
Mr. Massey?
Yeah.
So that's good. I think that's probably about right. Maybe you could slice and dice the data down to like the region, Southern Worcester County, to lookalikes and all that good stuff. What about the added layer of the job description? I don't think we have some are non-existent. I think we've tried to be better over the years to do it, but as part of this, will we normalize that based on what other people do?
Yeah, well,
Yes.
I'll point that to Peter as well.
What we did in early portion of the year is the Personnel Board conducted their own wage study. Our employees had some concerns, some questions. We had people being here 3 years earning more than people being here 8 years, and so we tried to look at a whole bunch of things. The first step we did is we updated every single non-union town hall employee's job description. So those are all current and updated. When we did our study, we took into population, average tax bill,
yep.
income per capita, and town's budget. And we tried to compare that to Dudley. If we were to use, for an example, Webster's clerical people or town hall workers are non-union. Are union. Our workers are non-union. So when we looked at numbers where salaries, places like Westboro, Framingham, their budget and there's no way we can be compared to towns like that. So we got our major portion of our information from the MMPA. And that comes out yearly. You can get it online, you can get it in their book, and we tried to make a comparison as well as tried to implement the concerns that the employees had, basically saying that our town hall employees are underpaid compared to other towns. And we tried to take a look at that. We also tried to say, well, what do we have to do to move our people toward the 90% factor of wages in the area?
90%.
And we tried to do it, look at it in several stages, a 70 percentile, 80 percentile, 90 percentile. But our first concern was we have to make sure that we're paying the same wage scale for the same work being done. And that comes from job descriptions and job classifications. I could certainly make available to you that copy of that survey. You can take the information or whatever the Board of Selectmen wants you to have. Jonathan is also Director of Personnel. So he and the Personnel Board work closely together on this. But I think from my standpoint, as I'm looking for guidance from the Board of Selectmen and the Director of Personnel, is where do they want us to go from here? And how do we want to get there?
Sure. Well, it sounds like you've done a very thorough analysis, and a lot of the steps and things that you did is what we would do as well, in terms of looking at the 75th, the 90th percentile, and all of that. Comparing positions from one organization to another becomes very tricky. And we maintain that it's almost virtually impossible to match 100% all the time.
That's why I brought it up, right?
So usually what we tell our survey participants is that if 70% of the job is comparable, then we use it for benchmark purposes, because we already start with the assumption that, okay, we're going to say 25 or 30% won't be the same. Also, the organization is different, you know. In some organizations, you might have a consolidated finance department, you know, in others, you might not. You might have a consolidated. So that's why I like to also look at the functional areas as well, you know, how the government is structured, and also the form of government as well. Typically, unless it's a major city like Worcester, typically in compensation, you do want to include your contiguous communities. You know, just, that's typically, unless, you know, it's a big city, you know, then you wouldn't. So, you know, whether a position is union or non-union, I've seen it both ways. I've seen the union jobs pay more, and I've seen sometimes the non-union jobs pay more. So it's really, you know, for compensation comparison, I mean, that's a nice data point to have and good information to have, but you shouldn't discount a comparable community simply because their jobs are union and yours are not. If the jobs are the same, because, you know, if somebody can jump from here to there, you know, or if you're recruiting. So that's, you know, that's going to happen. But, you know, I think also, too, in some of these studies, we look at the cost of living, you know, factor. I haven't studied the socioeconomics or anything out this way, but we just did a study, for example, in Martha's Vineyard, and they have a real I mean, they have the island factor, and it's real, because the cost of living there is like out of sight. So it's hard to recruit anybody, because you can't, so we had to take a really wide look. We had to look at on island and off island and get a little bit, creative. But I think, what you did was good, and I would love to see it and to look at it. And if we were hired to do anything here, in addition, we would use your study as the foundation to build it. I mean, I don't know what your plans are, but I'm sure it's very valuable, and I'm sure you've put a lot of work into that.
It's information, for sure.
Yeah.
And we do things very similar to other towns and communities. We have performance appraisals. There is a merit increase system. There is a COLA system. So we are similar in many ways to a lot of towns.
Yeah, that's good.
I
Thank you.
But I think that there was a board member who's not here, Mr. Joseph, who, I guess I'll speak for him and all of us, that we're looking for a bigger data set beyond what we had with that. I mean, there was some good information that study provided, but just, I guess, a broader view, like I said, the different classifications and analyses, so we could really be sure.
Yes.
And to be fair too, we throw the term COLA around very loosely, because
Right.
the COLA raises have no basis. They're not like the market basket. There's not, there's no hard data that comes up with a number. Like the former, not this administrator, the one before him, would say, I gave everybody a 2% COLA. Well, what'd you come up with 2%? It's not based on inflation. Instead of
It's
just,
usually the consumer price index.
right, that's what I'm saying, there's a CPI, like, I'm in a union, and I have COLA adjustments, but it's based on, call it the market basket, there's the 20 indicators or whatever that's
Yep.
in that.
Yep.
So for example, like when gas goes down, my COLA is non-existent because it's part of the, if it goes up, I get more.
Yes.
So we say COLA, it's not based on any exigent factor.
It's like their annual increase.
It should be just called a percentage raise, that's what it is.
Oh, I see.
The other thing I think is very important, and we have to keep in mind, is the town's budget. The town only has so much money to divide in the pie. Everybody wants a piece of the pie, and wages is a big part of that.
Sure.
So the budget is a big factor there also.
Certainly is, and how competitive you want to be with the market. Do you want to pay at the average? Do you want to be more competitive and pay a little bit higher? And those are all policy decisions of the Board of Selectmen, in working with the town administrator, how competitive you would want to be, in the market. So there's some strategic planning that goes through all this. What we typically do is sometimes we'll cost things out a couple of different ways to give options, to our client. We like to give options, like say, okay, if you implemented a plan at the 50th percentile, this is what it would look like, and this is what it would cost over 2 years. If you did it at the 75th percentile, this is what it would be, and this is what it would cost. And then our whole classification system is very, it's a valid system, it's legally tested, and ICMA recommends it. We've used it everywhere. And we actually own it with MRI, Municipal Resource, we own it together. So it's a valid system, it's computerized, and it's proprietary to our company, but we give it to you to use for your purposes. But it's a very solid tool for classifying. The thing is, you can do all the surveying on the outside as you want, but on the inside, you have to look at that internal equity piece. And that's very important because, and it also ties into the MEPA law too, having some kind of an equity tool, because you could have some jobs that pay very low out in the market, but internally, they're valued very high because they might require a master's degree, they might require certain certifications or licenses, and you also have to have a tool that's balanced white-collar jobs to blue-collar jobs, and not weighted one way or another, so all those things are important, but it sounds like you have some talent here already in the town, so you're very fortunate, because... Oh, sure. I did, with the job descriptions, did you go through a PAQ process? Did employees fill out position analysis questionnaires?
No. No.
Yeah, so...
What they did is, basically, department heads, correct me if I'm wrong, Jonathan, but the department heads wrote the job descriptions based on the requirements of that particular department.
Okay, I'm not saying that that's incorrect, but we have a more inclusive process with each and every employee where they have an opportunity to fill out a position analysis questionnaire. So it's a kind of a bottom-up process, ours.
And it's an ongoing thing too. As positions develop,
Yes,
you always you take another look at the position, they fill out the questionnaire, and
yes.
that kind of helps you classify the position on an ongoing basis
Yes.
appropriately.
Yes, yes. And so, and we leave you with all those tools, so you can do that internally. So that's a nice thing to have, to go through that process, so the employee fills out, we usually give a really great orientation. The employee fills out the PAQ. Then also the department head has a section, their own section, that they can write any comments, but they don't change what the employee wrote. And then after that, we interview everybody. We interview all the employees and the department heads, and so it's a lot of fact finding, and it's got to be, it's a skill. Because sometimes people can overinflate their jobs, or and the job descriptions.
Especially when they know a salary survey is coming down the pike.
Yeah,
right?
so you have to make sure that it's not, that it's factual, that it reflects their actual essential functions and the minimum requirements of the job. And then what we do is, right from the PAQ, we also will start rating the jobs. And then, so we rate them twice, after the PAQ and then after the job description. But then every employee has an opportunity to review their job description and draft, and then everybody gets their final job description. Yeah, and the role of the department head is that they get to review the job descriptions very carefully as well, and their input is very important, because sometimes an employee could understate or overstate. A lot of times they understate their job. And also the important thing is to make sure that the minimum requirements, everybody thinks, oh, you need a bachelor's degree for everything. You don't. You want to have always the minimum requirements for education experience, the minimum requirements for physical requirements. Like, you can't expect that a secretary is going to lift 70 pounds. That would be discriminatory, right? And,
She can, just...
So,
She can do a lot more than that, believe me.
all the physical things that you don't think of, like, we all pick up the phone, right?
Right.
So we all reach, right? So but there are, there's a lot to writing, the job descriptions with regard to the essential functions, the requisite requirements, in those FLSA compliant, requirements, because they have to be legally compliant job descriptions. And they have to be, the language too has to be consistent. You have to have a consistent pattern in terms of the format. So the job description will typically have the definition or the summary, right? And then also some, it might have the title or an account number. Then it will have the essential functions. It will have the accountabilities of the job, which is supervision, access to confidential information, those requisite requirements, experience, knowledge, ability, and skill, the physical, mental requirements, make sure that also that your rating tool clearly is a system that indicates responsibility and skill. So there is...
Can I just say something about
Sure.
the physical requirements? One of the things that is important on the physical requirements, and we talk about the weights people can lift. If you get a workers' comp claim
and you find that, you know, the laborer or the mechanic hurt his back, and, well, why did they hurt it? Well, they lifted such and such. Well, how much did it weigh? And if it, and if the weight is over what there's, what they're on their, what's listed on their job description, that's an issue. And, you know, your workers' company is gonna raise a red flag at something like that. So we always check sort of the basic weights that people lift, because we know that employees have claims, they get, unfortunately, get hurt on the job, and we want to make sure that the job description is written so that there's enough protection for them and the town, God forbid something happens, so that they know what their limits are.
So Jonathan, are we making a decision tonight? We bringing, there's another,
We're gonna talk to somebody else as well, so we get a little bit, so you have some
apple darn.
apples to apples, hopefully. Decisions, December 3rd, I think is that what we were scheduled to do? Anyway,
Yes, around that.
yes. So I want to just give everybody an opportunity
You have to
to
meet these
speak
folks.
to a couple of, and then make a decision at the, you know, probably around December 20th. We have a meeting, we'll probably make a decision then. A, B, none of the above, or not at all. Whatever the board wants to do.
Okay.
Can I just ask, you ever have a question, it's gonna go in, you know that after you leave here, you're gonna still have the question, you would wish you had asked it because you can't get it out of your head? This sounds a little bit cynical, but just, because this is a question that, as you were speaking, came up, and I need the answer to it. If you use all these different methods, I'm not being cynical, I'm not trying to be anything, but I'm asking a legit question. And why would you ever look at a salary survey that used none of these methods? What good would that be to you?
I'm sorry, what did you, I'm sorry.
So, we've had a couple of salary surveys, none of them used any of the methods, or mostly none of the methods you just described. Why would you ever want to see that salary survey? The
To see
results
yours,
of it?
to see the results of
I think
yours?
this gentleman's,
Yeah,
I would like
just
to.
out of curiosity.
I'm not sure I totally, without really studying it and
Yeah.
look at it, I really don't understand it completely, so I would want to look at.
You'd want to, okay, all
I
right.
would want to look at it and see if there's anything that we could look at in it. It doesn't hurt. I mean, it sounds like they put a lot of work into it, so I would want to look at it, but I can't say we would use it for our work. We'd want to do our own independent study, but we might want to refer to it. I
Yeah.
don't know. I mean, we'd have to, but we certainly would do our own due diligence and do our own study.
Is there an industry best practice or standard when you do a salary survey like this? In other words, is there a certain formula that you should follow, a certain methodology that you should follow versus another kind or another type?
Yeah, there are,
I
you
mean,
know.
there's a
and it's-
reason that
and
you're in
it's-
business and you're very successful at it.
Yes,
I'm trying to figure out why we can't do this internally versus what you can provide.
well, I'll tell you why you can't do it internally. Number one, it's very time-consuming, you wouldn't have the staff capability, number one.
Yeah.
Number two, you wouldn't be viewed as objective. You need to have an outside objective party do it. Number three, I'm not sure you have the credentials necessarily to do it. It's not just collecting and analyzing data and coming up with, you know, we're compensation professionals and specialists. This is our specialty. So we have 30 years of experience in doing this. So it would, you know, and so, you know, we're busy and
Yep.
we're active and we're sought after because we are specialists in this. So it's like, you know, if you need an accounting firm, you're going to hire an accountant. If you need a lawyer, you're going to hire a lawyer, you know. Now, you know, just like anything else, there are some legal things that maybe you could do without a lawyer, but probably you're better off to have a lawyer. So this is we're comp specialists. So, you know, this is our specialty. We have a method and a system that's very valid, but every study is different. Our methodology also is flexible as well, depending on the circumstances, depending on the client, and depending on the needs. So while we do have a standard methodology, every study is different, and every study is custom, because, you know, otherwise, you know, if it was something you could just pull off the shelf and use, you could use it. So I couldn't tell you, you know, in the next, you know, 10 or 15 minutes, you know, all the knowledge that we have.
Sure, and I'm
But-
not
but
asking
we
you to.
have-
I guess
We
the
have a lot of
question-
knowledge here.
The question in my head is always, as you can see, this has become a flashpoint here in town about how we pay people, why we even need a salary survey, how often we update our job descriptions, reclassify our pay grades, blah, 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 COLA versus merit increase. It's gotten to the point where we need to have somebody come in and put a set of eyes on it. That's not us, as far as I'm concerned. So I think that's why you're here.
And also
But
how-
I also wonder at some point how to answer people who say, all you have to do is look at every single position in the state and come up with an average. There's your salary. Or the other people would say, oh, no, you need to keep it within 4 or 5, you know, towns. You don't look at the whole state. There is such a wide swath of different ways to do a comp study. I'm trying to put wrap my head around what the correct one is for Dudley.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, you want a traditional approach here. You don't want anything very complicated. There are some systems, you know, that are like the Hay system, which is very complex, and you wouldn't want that. But you want something traditional, straightforward, easy to understand, but you want validity to it. So you want to have a methodology that would have validity to it. I think that what you probably, you know, might want to do, you know, and I think you're going to do that, is maybe, you know, talk to a couple of different consultants and see what they tell you. I know that it's a very specialized field. It's labor intense, and the minute you do it in-house, the employees will not like it. You know, it will be, you know, not objective. So you'll have to, you know, decide, you know, on that. But it wouldn't, you know, could you possibly do it? I guess you could possibly do it in-house, but I'm not convinced you would have the staff support, you know, needed to do it. The other thing too with our system is everything is computerized in the end, so we have a web portal and we provide, you know, that for you as well. So, but you know, if you do like a town-wide, you know, one of the things that you could consider, I don't know how many union groups you have, or this is sometimes done in other towns. Sometimes they decide not to do the whole town at the same time, and they say, okay, we're gonna do the non-union first, or we're gonna do, you know, this union next, the clerical union next, and they phase it. So that's a possibility too, to if you wanted to do it that way. So, and the other thing too that he didn't mention were the benefits. So benefits is something to consider, because a lot of times the pay might be average, but the benefits that you give might be very superior, you know. So, you know, and I'm not saying that you use the benefits to develop the salary schedule, but you use the benefits maybe as part of the total, you know, compensation and looking at that. So we've had a number of clients do that, so.
They'll admit that their compensation is at the 50%, 50% range, but their benefits are better than that. So, you know, they look at the balance of the you know, health insurance versus compensation, and they reach a point where they feel comfortable with that.
Right, Gary?
Just a thought. Mr. Ruda had said that we wanted something with new eyes as far as this, and something you had said as well, where if you do a study in-house, employees don't really think highly of it. I mean, there's a reason we're looking for this study. I don't remember the exact comments from the board, but we were looking for a new study. We didn't like the one that was done. So I'm being honest, it was
fine,
it was
that's
said.
fine.
No offense to you, no offense.
No, that's fine.
And my question that's sticking in my head is, why would you want to look at the study that was done in-house, so you say employees wouldn't like it, we want new eyes. Would it be possible for you to do the study without looking at that until maybe the end? Because this is just me thinking, why would we want to loop that in?
I'm sitting at a table with a gentleman who did a study for you, and I haven't, I don't want, I'm a good person, so I don't want to insult him.
And I'm not asking.
It's not my nature to be.
I'm not asking.
So I haven't, certainly, if we're hired to do the work, we will do the study. But you know what? A lot of times we're asking, when we start a study, we ask for information, and we ask, like, have you had any studies done in the last couple of years? Can you give us a copy of that? We just for our information, we just want to look at it because we're curious. Doesn't mean that that's going to be the standard that we go by. I'm just saying, we can certainly, it doesn't hurt to look at it, but we're going to do our own thing. Believe me, we're very proud of our methodology and our system, and it's going to have our name and our logo and everything on it, believe me. But, so.
Before I recognize Peter, it'd be like Mr. Fox said before, they redid all the job descriptions.
Yep.
Obviously, you want to see the work they've done to help give you a baseline,
Sure,
I would think.
absolutely.
When Peter had a
Okay.
point.
Unfortunately, Mr. Joseph is not, Selectman Joseph is not here tonight.
That would, yeah.
But he and the board, were looking, they looked at our study, they understand it. There's some things they probably like about it, there's some things they probably don't like about it. And I think the board was wanting to have somebody come and do a independent study, partly because ours was done in-house, and we're non-professional people. We did this in conjunction with Nichols College through an intern program. But that does not mean
I didn't know
that it was done through a professional way. It doesn't mean it has your touch and your skills and your 30 years' experience.
The standard you talked about earlier.
Right,
Because it
there was some
doesn't.
holes.
What I'm looking for is guidance from the Board of Selectmen and Jonathan Ruda. The questions I would ask is, what scope are you looking for? Are you looking for the whole town? Are you looking for just
No, I would
town hall
say,
people?
I would say right now, we're looking at non-union town hall employees. I mean, we have some people covered by contract that aren't unionized. We have elected officials that are covered by
And library.
getting the most votes. Yeah, library, well, actually I said all non-union, whose salary is set through town meeting. So I think what we're looking at is the staff, library staff, the staff here. Building and grounds is non-union. Anybody who's non-union that's not covered by a contract.
Anybody who's non-union, not covered by a
Right.
contract, that's excellent.
That'd be the position we're looking at.
A deeper, richer data set on the towns.
Right.
On
And I don't wanna
About how many positions would that be?
Under 20, I bet.
Around 20.
Oh, okay, so you're not looking at.
Yeah, I mean, just under 20. We'd be in the 15 to 20 vicinity.
I mean, I don't wanna go
15
down,
or 20
15 to 20 probably,
positions?
yeah.
I mean, I don't wanna go down
No,
a different path or a different road, but Buzz was here in a different role about a year ago, and he's got some experience, and now he has a feeling, general feeling of how the town's mentality and the way we operate. They took a look at, not the town hall function, they took a look at basically everything else, not counting public safety. They looked at DPW type stuff.
Highway, water, sewer.
The thing that's skewing it too, Mr. Chairman, is that we have some positions that are 12 hours, some that are 8, some that are 3.
Right. Which
Plus,
tried
we
to
have those
address.
combined positions we want to stick in a mix, so that becomes,
That was
that
issue
gets you up
two.
to 20 pretty quickly when you look at all
Yeah,
those.
that was the issue too. We have a lot of part-time, really part-time positions.
Yes, yeah.
And we have some that just make the threshold to be considered full-time benefited, or with benefits. And we have others, we have other positions that you can't even, and I'm gonna use Michelle, you can't even put a description of what she does. You know, we title her as administrative assistant to the,
Administrative secretary.
yeah. And at Christmas time, her and her elves are doing stuff for the Christmas pageant we have. At Halloween, they do, so I mean, it's like most small towns, everybody steps up. I mean, you know, we have clerks that are here getting paid for a certain amount of hours that are here exceeding it, you know, because they won't leave till the work's done, or they'll say, no, I'm gonna help. And that's what, like Jonathan said, you know, we end up, well, I think Peter, somebody said earlier, you know, you wanna compensate everybody fairly. We have people that have been here a few years, making more than people who've been here a long time. And you're trying to get to the point where everybody can be as happy as possible without obviously knowing you're not gonna please everybody.
Yeah, we've worked in a lot of communities like yours where there's a lot of part-time and different hybrid type jobs and different situations, and actually we have the ability, we have a tool where we can, when it's hard to find data, because the job is hybrid, we can actually hybrid the data. And we also have a tool which will show what the standard should be for education and experience for a job group, but it's, you know, like, well, just now, like I said, we were in West Tisbury, and my goodness, they have like people that work 5 hours, 10 hours, 15, you know, all over the place, and then they have regular, they have seasonal, but this is very typical, this is not uncommon.
Right.
You know, we work with this all the time, and we know how to work in that context. And, you know, gee, I forgot, you know, where Buzz worked here, I mean, we have an advantage that we really know the town, because we've studied it, you know, very, very carefully. So, I mean, well, we don't know anybody personally,
No, but
you
you
know,
understand the structure.
but we do understand
Right.
the structure, and I understand very much this part of the state, because I've done a lot of work out here. So, you know, we've done that, but, you know, the most important thing that you can take away from our company is that, you know, we work closely with our clients, and we make sure that whatever, while it's an independent study, we want to make sure that it meets the requirements that you're looking for. So, and you know, so, you know, we're not going to work in a vacuum. It's not like we get a study and then we go back to our office, we work in a vacuum, and you never hear from us until you get the final report. So you have an opportunity to look at multiple drafts and to have policy input and that sort of thing. And that's part of our, if you look at our website, if you go to our website, it talks about that, actually, about what our process is.
Well, the thing, you know, and I think we're pretty close to wrapping up, because as you said, we got somebody else coming in later in the calendar. I think one thing about Dudley, we don't lose a lot of people to other towns. I think our retention rate is high for our staff. There's a lot of factors, you know, convenience, probably people have been in jobs a long time. But as Jonathan said earlier, and Peter has indicated with their previous study, we do want to try to come up with a methodology that rewards people and sets the parameters for their job, whether it's more monetary as opposed to education, you know, putting baselines in for job descriptions. As Peter said, they've redone all the job descriptions, which gives us, and you have selected a good baseline to start. So I think, unless the board members got any other questions, I think it was a very, very good presentation. Certainly appreciate you taking the time. We know you were
Oh, you're welcome.
you were close doing some other work, but
Yeah,
we
no.
appreciate it.
Oh, no problem at all. We're all over the state, so we're around. So we appreciate the time to come here, and thank you very much. And thank all of you, and
How long will it take for you to complete the study? So I'm looking at maybe trying to get a decision in December, at the end of December before the new year. How long after that? Just 90
we
days?
would,
60
first of
days?
all, yeah, so you're talking, okay, we said about 20 positions. We would not be able to start until February 1, okay? But then we could have it done, 90 days or even less, 90 days. About 90 days, yeah.
Okay.
But if you're not gonna have a decision until December, you know, January's tough for us, so, I'd say, you know, February 1, we could start, and, you know, and we would be out here, we would get organized right away. Certainly in January, you can contact us by email or whatever, and that sort of thing, but we could maybe do some preliminary things, but, you know, I'd say February start, and
Well, that'd be good, because that would put us on track for any kind of adjustments we could potentially make for the Springtown meeting.
yeah,
Which is,
so,
ours is
when's
in
your
June.
Springtown meeting?
It's in June.
Oh, good, wow, that's late, so you're lucky. Oh, yeah, so if you had it in 90 days, that would be January, February, March, that would,
Wait, no, our town election's in June, sorry.
when's town meeting?
I'm sorry,
End of
May's
May.
town meeting, yeah. Elections are in June.
So you'd have to have it by March, right?
Well, I don't think any change that we could possibly make, if there was a major disparity, we couldn't make a change in 1 year anyways.
Right, we have to phase it in and do something.
Yeah, we could budget accordingly for any adjustments, but
Right.
Yeah,
if we had huge disparities, I don't think that 1 year would be enough to do it all at once.
Would give us some information moving forward.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's the most important thing, is, you know, getting something to react to. I know Mr. Joseph's not here, but that's something he would be talking to you about,
sure.
the data and your sources and.
You know,
different
selecting the comparables is a big decision. It's a lot of effort and a lot of discussion has to go into that. A lot of statistics, looking at it a lot of different ways, because that's really important, your benchmarks.
Yeah,
for your-
that's what
the
I think
biggest-
started it from the last one.
Yep,
There were
no.
holes, right, and we needed the holes filled, and.
The 90th percentile was the sticking point.
And that, yeah, well, because of what got picked, right?
Yeah, our previous town
Lakeville.
Wow,
administrator.
90th
Yeah, we had,
percentile
like,
is high.
Lakeville, Cohasset, and we had some kind of,
Cohasset.
I think they were in there, right?
They were looking at
Lakeville.
sizes of towns
Yeah.
and things
Oh,
like that.
no, that would not be a Cohasset, no.
But, our previous town administrator used
Something
to,
like that.
when they did individual position reviews in conjunction with personnel, he used to call it the Dudley discount. Like, we wouldn't go to 100%, we'd go to 80 or whatever it was.
Most communities go between the 50th to the 75th. I don't see too many at the 90th.
Yeah, he just called it the Dudley discount. Like, we tried to bring positions not to industry average. 'cause
They were that
again-
low that,
Right.
Maybe for certain executive positions like senior management or IT, finance, those positions that might be like really hard to recruit for, you might want to be at a different percentile than others, so,
We don't recruit because we have a lot of elected, in those positions are elected in our town.
oh,
So they're recruited to the ballot,
yeah,
so.
yeah.
No, but
Well, we
I-
were a speaker recently, just so you know, at the MMHR, the organization that you get your data. They asked us at their conference to be a speaker. We spoke at that, and so we've been a member there for many, many years. So
Good.
I actually knew Emil Scope, the award that they give. I actually worked with him years ago, so.
Excellent.
So, anyway, anything else,
appreciate
or?
it,
just-
You're available by email if questions come up.
Yeah, sure.
Just funnel them through the administrator to you.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Happy to answer any other questions. Please go on our website. Our website, I think, has a lot of good information, and there's a couple of articles that we wrote and a book. I think there's information about a book and some other things that we've done in our webinars, and we do a lot of webinars with ICMA, and they basically have endorsed our system, you know, in their HR book, which is their anchor book.
Excellent.
So,
that's good to know.
Excellent.
Yeah,
Well, we appreciate you coming in.
I have a fun fact.
yeah.
Buzz was the town manager of Wilmington, Massachusetts, where I grew up. So when I was a kid, you were the town manager. And my dad,
No way.
my dad worked at the highway department. John.
No way. Oh, my
Is
God.
that right?
I missed you last time around. I'm like, Buzz was
Oh.
here? I remember Buzz.
That is so funny.
was there.
Oh,
I started as an I don't know if you have, but I started as an assistant
Yeah.
there in the late 70s, and then I went to Andover in
Yeah.
1990.
That's
Yes,
right.
I was town manager there about 10 years. What a lovely town.
Yeah.
I mean, we
Wow.
live right next door. We
Right.
go through it all the time. We go through it all. My
I
dentist
would've-
is there. And
I would have
Great
liked to
place.
stay there,
have you
but
seen the new high school?
Of course, my 30th reunion is this year, and the old one's gone, so.
It's beautiful. Yeah, it's good now.
Yeah, here.
oh.
Thank you very much.
So just thought I'd bring that up.
We had to move because of the
meeting you yesterday.
residency requirement. We had to move.
Oh.
But we would have stayed. We only moved 7 miles.
Right.
I mean,
Huh?
no.
John came a little further.
Yeah, I came a little further. How did I end up Dudley?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Beautiful town.
Some might say with some chagrin, but some might say it was okay.
We used to love the 4th of July. Oh, it was so much fun there.
Who's the guy who ran that committee? Was it Ron Swayze or something?
Yeah.
It was very nice to meet
Patrick
you.
Swayze?
Nice to meet you here.
He was like the recreation guy.
Burgundy, Ron Burgundy.
Yeah. Figured I'd bring that up.
I knew you'd get it.
All right.
Thank you, folks.
Thank you, guys. Nice to meet you.
Okay, bye, thanks.
Thank you.
So I already put my agenda away, but board member comments. Mr. Johnson.
Spirited debate tonight. Thank the personnel board for coming today. Obviously, there's some hard work to do.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Yeah.
Take care, folks.
That's all.
Yeah, I just want to echo Mr. Johnson. I appreciate Mr. Fox. Joan Gardecki's here. She didn't come up, but that's the kind of dedication we have. People here that don't have to be, and we appreciate it. Mr. Massey.
Just wanted to say that I wasn't at the town meeting last Monday, for health reasons, but I heard it went well, and just thanks to all the work for everybody here, Jonathan, for shepherding the budget and all the other warrant articles, and all the town, our people who helped put it together, make that a success, so, thanks.
Mr. Siganovich.
I'd like to talk about marijuana for a moment and the vote we took tonight and why I voted yes. Regardless of anything personal I feel one way or the other, this community voted in the election that legalized it statewide. This community voted, Dudley voted for it. And that was the big piece that was in my head to say, yes, we should keep going forward with this. And I'm not speaking for anyone else, I'm just speaking for myself. If anyone's wondering why I voted that way. That's all.
I
Thank
believe
you.
it was something like 60,
Mhm.
66-34, something like, it was in the mid to upper 60s. It wasn't close.
It wasn't close. It wasn't a couple of votes one way or the other. So that tells me this community is open to it. And I think we'd be silly not to go forward, given that vote.
Right. And I just want to add too, Veterans Day Parade Monday, it's the easy one. It's from here to downtown Webster. I know it's usually a little cooler than Memorial Day. Any town official wants to march is invited. In the past, we've had other board members come for the march. And I want to send out a special shout out to the Grand Marshal, Donnie Christina, long-term friend of mine, former selectman, former Housing Authority employee for a number of years. And I have the opportunity to go by the Legion almost every day, and you're not going to find a more dedicated man than Donnie Christina. He's on that lawnmower, he's up there painting, he's fixing things, he's working with veterans, and it's certainly a well-deserved honor, and they know him as Gunny. I think he topped out as a corporal, I believe it said in the paper, which is an awesome achievement, and we just wish Donnie nothing but the best, and we're proud of him, and we appreciate him representing our town.
Yep. And what time is that at? 11? Leave it at 11?
Leaves at 11 here. There's a ceremony in Webster. Then they come here and they do the ceremony right out front here, and that's it. It's an easy one, so
Oh, yeah, then Webster.
What date was that again?
Monday, the 11th. It's
Monday,
actually,
the 11th.
well, it's 11/11, but this year it falls on the Monday. 11th day, the 11th month.
I haven't missed one yet.
So, with that note, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Anybody wants to stay? Speak now, forever hold your peace. Unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Good night.
Proud of you.
Aye.